Welcome to Something to Talk About. We're here at King's Restaurant in Tamuning, and I've got a double header for you. Today we're going to be talking to the Young Men's League of Guam. It's the oldest Chamorro fraternal organization here on Guam, and they've got some things planned because it's their 100th year. And I want to catch up with an old friend of ours. He's not old, but he's an old friend. Peter Onodera. He's a guy that has taught us so much about the language and our culture and our history. He is going to take up the other half of Something to Talk About here at King's Restaurant. Come on back. And here we are at King's Restaurant. Thank you for joining us on Something to Talk About. The Young Men's League of Guam celebrating its 100th anniversary, or birthday, if you will. It was established 100 years ago, Guam's oldest fraternal organization. And I got a couple of 100-year-old guys with me today.
Feels like
it. It feels like it on some days, right?
In some days.
Yeah. Well, first of all, can you explain to me what is the Young Men's League of Guam? What was the reason why it was even established? And back 100 years ago?
He's our historian.
Yeah, 100 years?
Yeah, very interesting. 1917, March 17th, as a matter of fact, was when the organization began, and it was pretty much an organization of young men that was created to, I guess, perpetuate the movement of the Chamorro people then through the young men in a social atmosphere that began with pretty much an encouragement of learning the English language by starting a library of sorts at the time. And then through the years, it just blossomed off into other community activities like the softball teams that sprung up in all the villages, and then there was a blood drive that for several years was the mainstay of the organization. And of course, the war years came along and so forth. And after the war, well, there was that period of a break, if you will, because the war years was just next to impossible to have the Chamorro men gather together for a meeting and so forth. But after the war, it sprung up again, and it continued to this very day, and it continued to embrace other community activities, one of which is a longer lasting one, which is providing scholarship programs to deserving young men and women in the community.
So that's the more modern history of providing scholarships. Monty, you know, you're still a young Monty Mesa, by the way, Peter Onodera. You're still a young guy, you know. I mean,
absolutely. And what inspired me to join the organization was actually Peter himself invited me to attend the meeting, and I was inspired with the philosophy of the organization itself to inculcate, of course, our Chamorro language and perpetuate it during the meeting as well. But more importantly is that the men that are involved, it's only men, of course, young men, Chamorro men, who are, you know, the movers and shakers of our community in all levels of our community, both business, in government, and in private. And retirees as well, who will continue to give back to the community and suggest things that the organizations itself can continue to perpetuate, but also bring in young people like myself and even younger young men who are interested in keeping that philosophy and the mission of the organization alive for the next 100 years, hopefully.
It must have been easier 100 years ago to form an all-male fraternity.
Yes.
than it might be today trying to, you know, form an all-male fraternity to start over.
That's right.
I mean, I think there might be a little more resistance to something like that. I don't know. Was there any kind of politics involved in young men coming together to create an organization without any women involvement? 100 years ago. I don't know what the women were doing 100 years ago.
Well, actually, we do have
Yeah.
a ladies auxiliary
Okay.
as a component of our organization today, and these ladies are either spouses or daughters of members, and they have a completely different program from ours and so forth. And they meet quite at the same day that we have our own meetings too, and so forth.
Well, then, who was the guy that sat around in the I don't know, the hut and said, "Hey, why don't we put up a charter or something, make this official?" And
Quite interestingly, when it first was forming in 1917, the organization received a boost from the governor of Guam at the time, one of our naval governors, pretty much, and encouraged it. And when it was forming, he also was able to have the Elks Club be like a supporting group of brothers that helped forge together the Young Men's League of Guam. And so that's where we sprung up from that effort and endeavor, if you will. But what was interesting was that the Elks Club at the time, that it was also in existence in 1970, were pretty much about the same age as an organization. But the Elks Club was an organization made up of non-Chamorros that did not allow Chamorros to become members and so forth. So the Young Men's League of Guam pretty much became an offshoot of that.
oh,
So
I see.
while
So they were inspired by another group to
Right.
form their own group.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
So
But the idea was civic in mind.
civic in mind, but at the same time to encourage the Chamorro men to pursue a more, I guess, environment, an environment of becoming learned, if you will, through the spoken English word,
Spoken
if you
English,
will.
yeah.
Remember that that's the forefront pretty much of the Chamorro or Chamorro speaking into English speaking, because that's our early years of our formation of the territory or the possession of the under the United States.
So I want to ask you, Monty, because you were relatively new then.
Yes.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at the generations, you're relatively new. Are there men that have come in that recognize the importance of the fraternity and the exclusivity of it being male Chamorro?
Oh, absolutely, and that's what sort of got me to be inspired to say, wow, this movement is really something being formed way back 100 years ago. Yeah, and when I listened to some of the history and read some of the history about how the men got together, and really, as what Peter was saying, it was to self-educate everybody in this new system
Circle,
that we
yeah.
can be an organized Chamorro men group and can be contributing members of this community in a very positive way. And it's the lessons to learn about the brotherhood, working together cohesively and helping each other out and
Well,
helping different community members.
I have to say I'm impressed, and I don't know if it's a rumor that I'm impressed by or if it is the truth, but I'm impressed that somebody had told me a while ago that the Young Men's League of Guam is a self-sustaining organization
Yes.
that has very good, strong financials, does not necessarily fundraise to keep
Right,
it going,
right.
and
Yes.
you're a force to reckon with with your financial history.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Am I
because-
impressed with the right reason?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You're correct.
Well, basically, you guys are rich. The organization is.
Well, the organization was smart in their development, and I think because I've joined the finance committee, so now
Okay.
I see
You're
really
in it, you
the
know it.
financial stability of the organization. And they were wise in the beginning to really invest in also accepting donation from members who donated property and built something on that property for revenue source.
I see.
And supported the organization to last
So you
this
ha-
long.
So you have a revenue stream from
Oh yes,
Property.
like from real estate.
From real estate, yes, we do.
We have
I see.
3 really solid accounts that's being managed financially, and there is a set of of board resolution on how
that
these
money is to be
accounts
distributed.
are
Yeah.
managed
Yes.
and grow.
Then it amazes me that how you have not become political, because where there's money, there's politics.
but that-
how did you not be consumed by the politics?
From my perspective, and I've only been a member for relatively a year now.
Okay.
And I see that they keep it separate. Is
that part of the charter?
Yes, it is part of our constitution.
That you
and-
don't endorse,
We have
you
to be
don't-
non-sectarian and non-political,
Okay.
and so forth.
And so it's also
that's
not a Catholic organization
and
or
it's
religious.
not a
org- But
non-sectarian.
is
yes.
there Faith Foundation? Is there any faith foundation from the faith? Was that ever a part?
No,
Not necessarily?
I don't. I honestly don't
religious-
think so. Although we have had the two archbishops have been. The late Archbishop Flores was one of our members.
I see.
Monsignor Oscar Calvo is the other one, and of course the current Archbishop Aparon also became a member in recent memory, and so forth. But we don't play into the religious aspect.
Okay, all right.
Although we have some ceremonies where,
Yes.
like our 100th anniversary mass, we had a mass at the, I believe, Maina Church,
Yes.
where we had our 100th liturgical celebration.
So how did men join? How do you become a part of the
You become
fraternity?
introduced, like I
you have to be
introduced
sponsored
him.
in, of course.
I see.
Right, and then
And,
the general membership approves your
yes.
membership.
So there's scrutiny.
application.
There's some scrutiny.
You
Right.
have to have a
Right.
Chamorro heritage.
Right.
Oh,
That is
okay.
the.
That's key.
That's key.
Yeah, that's key.
So what about the current archbishop? What if he wants to join?
No.
No.
Okay.
And I just joined during the time when, the turn of some thinking
Had-
to try to open it up,
Yeah.
and wow, there was a strong
Well,
debate
I mean,
on
you
that
had
issue.
100 years of the
Yes,
solidarity.
right,
It's,
Right.
Well, that's impressive.
Yes.
That's impressive.
And of course, many of the men who have become members and have graced our organization, all the past governors of the island have been YMLG members. All the the delegates, except of course the current one, have been members of the Young Men's League of Guam.
Amazing.
Many of the senators and speakers of the legislature, and a few. No, not a few, but a number of the judges have also become members of the YMLG
Wow.
and so forth. So we are even in the business community too, like he mentioned earlier. So we've got from the business, the government, the politics, political part of the community, educational system. We have some medical doctors who are also members of the organization. So we come from all over.
Well,
even teachers. too.
You're talking about respected membership, and I think that
Absolutely.
that's
Right,
probably
yes.
what you try to uphold more than anything. Is,
Right, yes.
Chamorro only, citizens that are of great respect and.
And we are holding on to
Stature.
that. This has been the mainstay of the organization, that we try to maintain some sort of solidarity.
I just learned something, and it's
Yes.
very rare that I get to learn something about an organization.
And I think that was the premise in the beginning, that the men at that time said, hey, this is the time for us to learn from what has transpired in the community at that time. And he says, no, the Chamorro men can be seen that we can get organized. We can be a great organization being run in our way and in our customs and traditions, but also be able to be self-sustaining and be self-generating and continue to grow that. And
Well, I
I think
think
that
that-
lasted 100 years, and
I
was
think that some
very
people could take some
impressed.
cues from this.
Oh,
There's a
absolutely.
lot of there's a lot of different scenarios where I could see that they could adopt some of the policy or the mission statement and
Yes.
watch how it functions and grows.
Right.
Well, congratulations on
Oh, no,
on just having the staying power in the climate, in the ever-changing climate that is Guam. And the fact that it's a male only and it's Chamorro only is
Right.
satisfying to hear.
The spirit, you feel that even my first meeting, and they conducted it in Chamorro, and I go, wow, I mean, okay.
Where have
this
I
is,
been? Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I'm glad that,
Yeah.
not everybody, of course,
Yeah.
speak it. Everybody understands it.
Yeah.
It's just, I too, I understand it, of course,
But
and I
that's-
speak
but
it, but
it- and that's
I need to practice it more.
And we
Yeah, but-
encourage it.
Well, and I mean, and for you, Monty, just it's identifying for you. I mean,
Oh, yes,
right.
it's,
As a man, as a man of a business and family, it's a great identifier for a lot of men who are trying to figure out somehow or another.
I'll give you a great example on the transition now in this 100 years of the YMGL. our office, our clubhouse, is up on Mighty, just the road up by Venue, on the right-hand side, and it's now we have a tenant down on the first floor.
Pokey Fries or tenant, yeah.
Pokey
That's
Fries.
our
Oh,
building.
okay.
That
That's our
building,
building.
it's now
that's your
And the
building.
property
repainted, it's
there, and the one,
redeveloped,
yeah.
it's
You own
cleaned
it?
out because it had a little different
Yeah.
tenancy at the time.
Yeah.
But it looked at it and said, hey, looking at the future, we need to really look at how we're being seen now in our 100-year of operation, that we need to be better at this and have a better strategy
I love that.
from and continuing it forward from a
Yes.
business
I
standpoint.
just want to be a fly on the wall. You don't have to talk about your wives, do you? That's, you,
It
have,
is,
you have a secret handshake. No?
yeah, there is.
Okay, well, I'm not going to ask for any secrets.
No.
Congratulations again on your 100th
Thank you.
anniversary.
Thank you for allowing us to
It's
at
my
least
pleasure.
express
It's
this.
my pleasure.
And I encourage any young Chamorro who be interested. It's really an organization that hopefully would inspire, but also pass on this legacy that Chamorro men can work together for the common good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
We'll take a quick break here. We'll be right back. And here's our double header for something to talk about. I wanted to have some time alone with Peter Onodera, and of course, I know that we didn't get to the actual crux of the interview because I was so impressed by the organization. Can we just quickly talk about the project that you have for the 100th commemoration?
Yes, as part of the Young Men's League of Guam, for the 100th anniversary, we were producing a commemorative book to highlight the 100 years of our existence. And we are appealing to all the brothers out there to be a part of this venture, in addition to the family members of those deceased brothers who have already left us and so forth. We're compiling together a historical account of the 10 decades of our existence. And so we're really working hard against a deadline that we're trying to meet of producing this commemorative book in time for our 101st birthday on March 2018. So once again, I'm here to appeal to the members of the Young Men's League of Guam, both present and past, as well as family members, to join us by calling me perhaps at 797-8710, and I'll be able to talk to you further about about the book and what we're trying to accomplish between now and the end of the year.
Okay.
Caesar's Masi for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the short time that we have left, I never thought I would have to say this to you, but welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome back to Guam. If anybody had been following Peter Onodera, you would have seen that he had traveled in far-off lands from Guam, which I thought was so surprising, but you'd spent some time with your family in San Diego and then spent some time in Hawaii. And I was saying every person needs to, at some point in their life, I guess, have a little bit of time away so that they can come back with a newer, sort of fresher idea. Is that how it happened?
That's right. I was one of those that decided to take a break from the island and experience what it is like to live as a Chamorro in the mainland United States. And I had that opportunity, and although it was not that long, but it was long enough, I felt, for me to realize that it's true that you can still take the people out of the island and make the most of where they decide to stay at and so forth. And
But you can't take the island out of the people.
And that's, you're right. Now that part too, I also believe in it, and that's what brought me home.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I was able to meet up with a lot of Chamorros who came from Guam. Many of them I last saw when I was a child here in the village of Sanahanya, former classmates that I went to school with, old neighbors, even distant relatives that I had a fleeting memory of and so forth, but I was able to reconnect again in San Diego, and that was, to me, was a very heartwarming experience.
I got to ask you, because your forte is the Chamorro language.
Right.
Are there many Chamorros, still Chamorro speaking from your classmates, and have they also helped the next generation preserve the language all the way out there.
Yes, yes. I did meet up with former classmates and former neighbors who still perpetuate the usage of the Chamorro language and so forth. And that to me was heartwarming. I thought, but at the same time too, there are also a lot of Chamorros who were born there and have never been to Guam, but still claim that they are Chamorro.
Do you feel like every time I talk to a transplanted Chamorro person who lives over there but doesn't have the experience of living here, I always really get the sense that there's a yearning, and it's inexplicable to them, but they know when they get here what the yearn has been answered, because they see it and they feel it and they go, this is like my people, and I belong, my whole soul belongs here, which is what that yearning is.
Yes,
for their identification.
Yeah, I see that, but I also see that alive and well too in San Diego, where I was living at, because many of the things that they brought from Guam, they still practice over there too, like the fiesta celebration, the novenas, the traditional 9 days of rosary when somebody passes away and so forth. And
so a
even
lot of the cultural practices are alive.
Are still alive there and still practiced.
But would you agree then, at the same time though, coming back to the motherland,
yes,
there's something about the land, there's something about the dirt and the smell and the,
yes,
the sounds.
Yes, that is also true. And many of them that end up coming over here for, even no matter if it's just a short period of time, they feel that connection to the earth, so to speak, to their mother country. And I always also tell them that Guam is the mother country of the Chamorros, whether you see it or not. So let's all make it a point that
to try to visit at some point.
Visit it at some point, but practice also what you learned from living on Guam.
What are you doing now that you've come back differently or new that you would not have known unless you had gone?
Gosh, that's a very good, challenging question, if anything. I kind of picked up where I left off and so forth, but if it's anything that I do know that's still steadfast in my heart is the perpetuation of the Chamorro language and the culture. I still write in the Chamorro language, I still speak it, I'm teaching it again in a private pursuit.
Do you feel that there's more of a resolve to do it more passionately?
Yes.
Because you've gone away and seen where it hasn't necessarily been practiced, written, and spoken, and you want to sort of save it? I don't know if you want, that's the right
word. I see it
word.
more of a resolve now, especially that I became involved again in the Young Men's League of Guam with the 100th anniversary. But I also see the current issue at hand of our self-determination. Many of the people that I continue to come in contact with are saying the same thing. Let's perpetuate who we are as a people and as a culture, especially to the issue of the Protehe Ilitegzan. That's still very deep, running deep in a lot of people's hearts and so forth. We need to save as much as we possibly could of our island and our culture.
So did you come back as an activist?
Well, I was always accused of being a literary activist because of my writing.
Yeah, but now have you become a political activist?
No, I try to stay away from the political life.
That's hard to do, though.
Yeah,
it is hard to do.
It is hard to do, but I try to stay away from that because I feel that the nurturing of the Chamorro language and culture is still very important.
Yeah, and it's important enough to fight for.
Important enough to fight for.
Man, we've lost our time with you, but I'm so happy that I had some time to catch up with you because I noticed that you were back, and I'm just thrilled.
Oh, thank
I'm just
you
thrilled,
too.
and so many people, you've been a beloved Chamorro teacher. And so many people, I'm sure, are going to try to come back and reconnect.
Yes, and I hope so too. And thank you very much
Welcome
for having me on this show. Yes, thank you.
That'll do it for us on Something to Talk About. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.